Atkins.
Well, I don't believe it will be like the past because I believe in continuing evolution. I believe that the universe is expanding, and therefore the universe will, in the future, will not be like the universe in the past. I also believe, but at a deeper level, if I could respond there, on the cogency and continuity of physical law, because but physical laws are commentaries on the behavior of matter and of radiation and whatever else you want to include. And so I see, because matter and radiation don't change their character, physical laws do not change their character. I see the universe evolving into the future, changing as it goes, but the physical laws that underlie the universe will not change.
A question for Dr. Craig?
Do I get a counter response or not?
Sure.
Okay. I don't think Dr. Atkins perceived the force of the question. The point of the question is that this assumption that the laws of nature remain constant into the future is precisely that. It is an unprovable assumption, which shows again that you cannot justify science scientifically. You have to begin with certain assumptions.
That's nonsense. That we can't believe that that laws remain constant. We only have to look at a distant star, a distant galaxy, where we're actually looking at the physics of 10 to the 14 years ago.
I think the point is you can't justify inductive reasoning by means...
I think we have to interrupt this, or
yes, it's
you're both so
empirical
interesting.
observation.
We could do this all night long. So let's have the next question is for Dr. Craig, am I correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
And it would be terrible if we never got to my question. I'm Ed Buckner from the Atlanta Free Thought Society. Dr. Craig, if you insist that objective moral values really exist, explain why Christians have never been able to agree on what they are from one sect to another, from one historical era to another, from one issue, and you mentioned one tonight, torture, slavery, abortion, genocide, and so forth, to another. And if your answer is just that man is sinful, then are you admitting that, in fact, objective morality is not available to humankind?
I'm not saying that because there are objective moral values that all moral decisions are easy, or that there aren't areas of gray in which there might be moral disagreement. I'm simply just saying that there really are, in ethical decisions, right and wrong choices. Sometimes these are very clear. I think every one of us would agree that to torture a child for fun is morally wrong. But we would probably have much disagreement here tonight about, say, whether abortion is ethically viable or not. So to say that there are objective moral values is not to say that ethics are easy or that they're necessarily easy to discern. Certainly there are ethical dilemmas.
A question for yes, a question for Dr. Atkins. Go ahead.
This question is rather simple, and it may be rhetorical. How can we, as an integral part of this universe, or rather a product of this universe, be objective in this issue as well as any issue?
Are you interested in objectivity tonight, Dr. Atkins?
Yeah, I'm interested in objectivity. I think it's amazing that science is a route to objectivity. That is its secret. I think religion depends upon subjectivity. Science is a mechanism for achieving objectivity. It stands back from, it's a public procedure, and that's the remarkable difference between it and religion. It's public, it's transnational, it's transcultural, and it's rooted in the logical power of mathematics. So it is we've seen how far it has brought us in 100 years.
Question for Dr. Craig.
Yes, hello. When I came tonight, I thought that we were discussing God in general, but it seems to me, Dr. Craig, that you only talked about the God of Christianity. My question is, why are you Christian? There are literally hundreds of gods out there, several of which are mutually exclusive. Like, Christians claim that Jesus is the only way to heaven. Muslims claim that Allah is the only way to paradise. Zoroastrians say the same thing about their religion.
Right.
All of these religions, more or less, have just as many devout followers as you, or at one time had. And all of these religions have doctrines similar to the Bible, which can be used to disprove the other the doctrine's wrong. And also, all of these religions provide quick and easy answers to issues such as the origin of the universe and the afterlife, without using faith as a reason, because all of these religions require faith. Why do you assume that your religion is the only one that's right?
Well, I don't assume that Christianity is the only one that's right. I try to give evidence for that. And my evidence would be the person of Jesus of Nazareth. When you look at the personal claims that Jesus of Nazareth made to be the revelation of God the Father, the only revelation of God to mankind, and he authenticated this by his resurrection from the dead, these are historical claims that can be investigated using the ordinary tools of historiography and ancient history.
Just
and
as
when
they
you
can for Muhammad.
No,
Just as they
no.
can for the Buddha.
Oh, not at all. When I did my doctoral work in Germany, I made Islam my side area of expertise that I was examined in. And when you compare, for example, what the Quran has to say about Jesus, it incorporates demonstrably legendary elements into the story that came hundreds of years after the events. The Quran was written down 600 years later by a man who had no first-hand acquaintance at all with the New Testament, compared to documents which are indisputably from the first century, written during the lifetime of the eyewitnesses by the first generation after the events. And I think that there is no doubt that when you assess it by purely objective historical standards, the New Testament documents come out head and shoulders above something like the Quran when it comes to an account of the life of Jesus of Nazareth. So I would just invite you to look at the historical evidence for the resurrection of Jesus and see if this man might not have been telling the truth. I think that he was.
But what the Quran says about Muhammad is just as believable as what the New
Right.
Testament
I
says.
don't deny the facts about Muhammad.
A question for Dr. Atkins?
Yes, I have a question for Dr. Atkins. Dr. Atkins, at the very beginning of your opening statement, you admitted that the task for the atheist to establish his position as the truth is to explain absolutely everything, everything of the body as well as the spirit, the entirety of the physical universe and our own nature, both inside and out. And you admitted that at this point in time, science can't do that. You have asked us repeatedly throughout the evening to give science a chance. Isn't it true that Christians and other theists are quite willing to let scientists explain what science really can explain, but that we maintain that your position is an irrational faith that somehow human intellect is omniscient, or at least potentially omniscient, and even omnipotent in some respect, and that you have enormous faith in your own mind, in your own ability to explain everything, and in science to do that which the vast majority of humankind, for its entire history, has recognized cannot be explained in such a way. Don't you have much more faith in your science than Christians do, or other theists do, in their God?
No. I think you have more faith in your God than I have in mine. A more vacuous faith, as it were, in your God than I have faith in science. I think that what you have to do is to judge the progress of science over the last 300 years, or if you like, really since it's really been serious science since the turn of the 20th century, the beginning of the 20th century. And you can see the extraordinary progress that has been made. It's made more progress in 100 years than religions have made in 5,000 years. And there's every reason to suppose that its not yet stopped razor will go on slicing through the fabrics of the heavens and account for everything there is in the world. And the principal point is that it will do it with the prospect of human comprehension, that you and I will be able to understand the answers that it comes up with, just as we are understanding what it's currently training us to see as the nature of the world. And moreover, that it will do it this side of the grave. Now, any system of knowledge, of understanding, of comprehension, which says you'll understand it when you're dead, is an evil distortion of what it means to understand
But no one has made that claim. I think it's important tonight to see that this is not a debate between science versus religion. I'm excited about scientific progress, as are you, because
But you
it's
misuse
been
it.
during this century that we've discovered things like the origin of the universe, the fine-tuning of the initial conditions of the universe for intelligent life. It seems to me that it is the very progress of science which is pointed toward God.
We have two questions backed up here.
Dr. Craig, I take exception with your first cause leap of reason from the universe has a cause and therefore that cause is God. Where did you make that leap that the cause must be God? There could be a number of things we can't even conceive yet.
Okay. I dealt with that in some detail in my first speech because I realized this would be a major issue dividing us tonight. I argued that the origin or the cause of the universe must be uncaused, timeless, changeless, immaterial, personal, and have an unimaginable power. And basically the reasoning behind that is because as the cause of space and time, this being cannot itself be in space and time. It must transcend them, and therefore must be changeless and immaterial, because anything in space and time is changing and physical. That's where Dr. Atkins' scenario, by contrast, is self-contradictory. This dust of mathematical points, which he talks about swirling and forming a universe again and again, and then it dissolves and it reforms and it dissolves. Finally, it holds into this universe. That's explicitly self-contradictory in
Dr.
proposing
Atkins,
a time
one
before
minute to
time.
reply to that
Yes.
because there's an internet question pending.
There's deep questions in 1 minute. I think you distort what I'm saying. I mean, it was you who put the words into my mouth. I wrote similar words, but they're much more careful, more sophisticated words than the ones that you were using.
Those were direct quotations, Dr.
Yes,
Atkins.
but
Okay, we'll go to the question from internet. Who's going to, how do we handle that?
Mr. Buckley, this question came in from Perry Robinson in California, and this is directed to Dr. Atkins. Dr. Atkins, you ask us to divest ourselves of preconceptions. Does this include the epistemological preconditions of all rational thought? If so, how then does one proceed? If not, what criteria do you use to determine what preconceptions we should start with? Secondly, how is it possible to be epistemologically neutral?
well, I think one doesn't divest oneself of rational thought. I think that I agree there's a certain foundation on which all these arguments are based. One of them is the existence and power of rational thought. The other is the self-consistency of logic. I think we would probably both agree on that. So those are the substratum of all the arguments that both of us would take part in.